They knocked like they were delivering a package. Two quick taps, then a pause that felt too deliberate. When I opened the door, a woman in a navy cardigan stood on my porch with a badge clipped to her lanyard, and a man beside her holding a slim clipboard. Not police, not sales. The kind of calm that says they've rehearsed this moment with strangers 1,000 times. "Naomi Weller?" the woman asked. I didn't step back. I didn't step forward. I kept the doorway as a boundary. "Yes," I said. "Who are you?" She held her badge up at chest height. "Child Protective Services," she said. "I'm Ms. Halprin. This is Mr. Lacey. We need to speak with you." The words hit the air and immediately changed the neighborhood. I felt it before I saw it. The quiet shifting, the curtains moving. Across the street, my mother stood on the sidewalk with her arms folded, watching my porch like she'd bought a ticket. She didn't look confused. She didn't look worried. She looked satisfied. A window blind twitched in the house next door. Another neighbor cracked their front door and pretended to check the weather. The same people who waved at my son when he rode his scooter were now peeking at me like I was dangerous. Ms. Halprin kept her voice soft, practiced. "We received a report concerning your son," she said, and raised a printed intake form. "We need to verify his safety and ask you some questions." My son was in the living room behind me, watching a cartoon too loudly, still in his socks, unaware that the world outside the screen had shifted. I felt a cold pressure behind my ribs, but I didn't let it reach my face. Panic gives people permission to narrate you. "Okay," I said calmly. "Before we do anything, I want to see the intake form." Ms. Halprin hesitated, then angled the page so I could read the header and case number without grabbing it. The top line had a timestamp, a contact method, and an assigned worker ID. I didn't read the allegations yet. Not first. I asked the only question that matters when someone weaponizes a system. "Who filed it?" I said. "And what time was it submitted?" Ms. Halprin's eyes flicked up to mine. The way she looked at me changed just a fraction, like she was surprised I wasn't begging or yelling. "We don't always disclose reporters," she said carefully. "I'm not asking you to violate policy," I replied. "I'm asking what's written on your intake line. The time and the reporter type? That's part of the record." Behind her, Mr. Lacey shifted his weight, scanning my porch and the street like he was quietly counting witnesses. Ms. Halprin looked down at the paper again, then at a tablet in her hand. She tapped, scrolled once, and her mouth tightened. My mother across the street didn't move. She just watched the same way she used to watch me open my report cards, waiting to see if I'd finally fail in public. Ms. Halprin exhaled slowly and lowered her voice. "The report was submitted today," she said. 2 hours ago." "Time?" I asked. She glanced again. 10:14 a.m. I nodded once, filing it away. "And the reporter?" She didn't answer right away. She looked at the screen again, then went still. Not dramatic. Just quiet. Like a person realizing the story they were handed has a familiar smell. "Mister?" Lacey leaned in slightly. "What is it?" he murmured to her. Ms. Halprin's eyes stayed on her tablet. Then she looked up at me and her tone dropped into something that felt almost human. "You're not going to like this," she said. I kept my voice even. "I'm already not liking it." She hesitated, then turned the tablet slightly so only I could see the intake summary line at the top. The content below was blurred by motion and angle, but the reporter field was clear. It wasn't anonymous. It wasn't mandated reporter. It was a full name. A name I'd spent years trying not to react to. My mother's. I didn't flinch. I didn't look across the street. I didn't give her the reward of watching me break. I looked at Ms. Halprin and said, "I want that noted, that this report came from her." "It's already in the record," Ms. Halprin said quietly. But yes, I'll note your statement." I nodded, calm on the outside, cold on the inside. Because now I knew exactly what this was. My mother didn't want my son taken. My mother wanted me marked. She wanted a government folder with my name on it so she could point at it forever, so she could say, "See, even Child Services agrees there's something wrong with her." Ms. Halprin lifted the intake form again. "I still have to follow procedure," she said gently. "We need to see your son, confirm he's safe, and ask you some questions." "I understand," I said, "and I'm going to cooperate, but I want everything documented." Mr. Lacey nodded slightly, like he respected the sentence. I stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in," I said. "He's in the living room." As they entered, my son's cartoon voices filled the space, bright and oblivious. Ms. Halprin softened her face and crouched slightly to put herself at a less threatening level when he looked over. "Hey there," she said. "What's your name?" My son glanced at her, then at me for cues. I gave him a small nod. He answered. She asked simple questions. He answered again. He didn't look scared. He didn't look rehearsed. He looked like a kid who had no idea his grandmother was standing across the street trying to turn his home into a crime scene. Ms. Halprin stood and turned back to me. "Can we talk at the kitchen table?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and led her there. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't offer water. This wasn't hospitality. This was evidence. I sat with my hands folded on the table, phone face down beside them, not recording openly but ready. If she asked to see my phone, it would be clean. If she asked about my home, it would be clean. If she asked about school, appointments, food, bedtime routines, I had receipts, calendars, messages. Because my mother's favorite lie was always the one that sounds like concern. Ms. Halprin began. "The report states there are concerns about supervision and—" Before we go into the allegations, I interrupted gently. "I want to confirm the basics for the record. You said it was filed at 10:14 a.m. today by my mother. Is this the first report associated with my address?" Ms. Halprin blinked again. That same micro-surprise. She tapped her tablet. "There is a prior contact," she said slowly. My stomach tightened. "Prior contact with CPS?" "Yes," she said, still looking at the screen. "But it's not what you think." My voice stayed flat. "Show me." She hesitated, then rotated the tablet slightly so I could see a brief log. Date, status, closure reason. The earlier contact had been marked information only, no visit, closed quickly. And the reporter name on that one, filed months ago, was the same. My mother. Ms. Halprin's eyes met mine. "You won't believe what she wrote in this one," she said quietly. And then she looked down at her screen again, scrolled once, and the color drained from her face as she read the first line of the allegation out loud. Ms. Halprin didn't raise her voice when she read it. She didn't need to. "The reporter states," she said, eyes on her tablet, "that your son has been left unsupervised for extended periods, that there are unknown men in and out of the house, and that there may be substance use in the home." My kitchen suddenly felt smaller, and like the walls had leaned in to listen. Mr. Lacey's pen hovered over his clipboard. He didn't look at me. He looked at the doorway to the living room like he was measuring distance and risk. I kept my tone level. "Those statements are false," I said. "And they're coming from someone who wants to hurt me, not protect him." Ms. Halprin nodded once, not agreeing, just acknowledging the sentence existed. "I understand you're saying it's retaliation," she said. "But I still have to complete the safety check." "I get that," I replied. "Then do it properly. And document that the reporter is my mother and that she is watching from across the street." Mr. Lacey glanced toward the front window. The blinds were open enough to see my mother's outline. Arms still folded, posture still proud. Ms. Halprin's jaw tightened slightly. The first sign she wasn't enjoying this either. "Okay," she said. "We'll start with the home environment. Then I need to speak with your son privately for a few minutes." My chest tightened at the word privately, but I didn't fight it. Fighting procedure makes you look like you're hiding something. Fine, I said. I want the timing noted. My son was safe at home when you arrived, and he will be safe when you leave. Ms. Halprin stood and looked around my kitchen with the kind of attention that turns ordinary things into evidence. The fruit bowl, the dish rack, the magnet calendar on the fridge, the backpack hanging on the chair. Is it just you and your son living here? She asked. Yes, I said. His father isn't in the picture. She didn't probe that yet. She moved to the fridge. Do you mind if I look inside? She asked. Go ahead, I said. And I stood too, not hovering, just present. You'll find food. You'll find his lunchbox. You'll find the medication list taped inside the cabinet. Mr. Lacey scribbled something as she opened the fridge. Milk, fruit, leftovers in labeled containers, yogurt cups with cartoon characters. Ms. Halprin glanced, then closed it. Her expression didn't soften, but her shoulders loosened a fraction. Then she asked, Do you have any medications in the home? Yes, I said. Mine are in the top cabinet. His are locked in a small case in the pantry. You can see it. She looked at me carefully. Why are his locked? Because I'm not careless, I answered. And because I've been around enough relatives who treat boundaries like suggestions. Ms. Halprin's eyes flicked up at that, quick. She didn't comment. She just said, Show me. I walked to the pantry, took the locked case down, and set it on the counter. I opened it and let her look. It was boring. Children's fever reducer, allergy medicine, dosing syringe, all unopened or half-used with dates written on them. The kind of boring that keeps kids safe. Mr. Lacey wrote again. Mrs. Halprin asked, Any alcohol? There's 1 bottle of wine in the cabinet, I said. If you want to see it, you can. She opened the cabinet, saw it, closed it. No drama, no gotcha. Then she asked, Do you have any weapons? No, I said. And if someone claims I do, they're lying for effect. She looked at me for a beat like she was deciding whether to ask the next question. Has your mother threatened you before? She asked. I didn't laugh, I didn't sigh. I said, She has threatened to make sure I never get to raise him without her. She said that out loud. Mr. Lacey's pen paused. Mrs. Halprin nodded slowly. When did she say that? I kept my voice steady. 3 months ago, I have the text messages. And I have a voicemail. Ms. Halprin's face stayed professional, but her eyes sharpened. We may need those, she said. Not to avoid today's process, but to understand context. Good, I replied. Because context is the only thing she can't fake once it's documented. Ms. Halprin moved toward the living room doorway and lowered her voice. Now I need to speak with your son alone, she said. Just a few minutes. I felt the small, subtle fear again, like a hand tightening around my ribs. Not panic. A controlled, immediate alert. Okay, I said. But he's 8? Keep it age appropriate. She nodded, then crouched slightly near the living room, making herself smaller. Hey, buddy, she said gently. Can we talk for a minute? My son muted the TV with the exaggerated seriousness kids use when adults enter their world. He looked at me again for cues. I gave him a calm nod. It's okay, I said. Just answer her questions like you always do. He stood and followed her into the dining nook near the window. Mr. Lacey stayed in the kitchen with me, half turned toward them, not listening closely but present. I stared at the grain in my countertop and breathed through my nose. I didn't pray. I didn't bargain. I trusted the truth. And the fact that my mother didn't actually know my daily life well enough to mimic it. Ms. Halprin's voice stayed soft. Simple questions. What do you eat? Who picks you up? And what happens if you get sick? Do you feel safe? Does anyone hurt you? My son answered with the flat honesty of a child who has nothing to hide and no interest in drama. He even complained about broccoli like that was the biggest crime in the home. Then Ms. Halprin asked gently, "Do strangers come to your house at night?" My son frowned. "No," he said. "Sometimes Grandma comes and bangs on the door." Mr. Lacey's pen scratched hard on paper. Mrs. Halprin asked, "What happens when Grandma comes?" My son shrugged. "Mom tells her to leave." I kept my face neutral, but inside something loosened, just enough to keep my breathing steady. After a few more questions, Ms. Halprin thanked him and sent him back to his show. He sat down and unmuted it like the whole conversation was a commercial break. Ms. Halprin walked back into the kitchen and looked at me differently now, still professional but less suspicious. "Your son appears safe," she said. "He appears bonded to you. He doesn't present as fearful." "Because he isn't," I said quietly. Mr. Lacey cleared his throat. "We still need to document the allegation review," he said. "I know," I replied, "and I want to add something to your file." Ms. Halprin nodded. "Go ahead." "The intake form," I said. "Did she attach anything?" Ms. Halprin's eyes flicked to her tablet. "Yes," she said. "There's an uploaded photo." My skin went cold again. "What photo?" She hesitated, then turned the tablet slightly so I could see it. It was my front porch. My porch light was on. The angle was low, like someone crouched near my steps. And in the corner of the frame, blurred but recognizable, was a small plastic bag on the ground. My stomach tightened. "Zoom in," I said. Ms. Halprin pinched the screen. The bag came into focus. It wasn't clear enough to identify contents, but it didn't need to be. It was the implication that mattered. My mother was trying to plant a story in the form of an object. Mr. Lacey said, "Do you know what that is?" "I know what it's meant to look like," I replied. "But I also know something else." Mrs. Halprin looked up. "What?" "I have a doorbell camera," I said. "If someone placed something on my porch, it's on video." Ms. Halprin's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Can you show it?" "Yes," I said, and I picked up my phone. My fingers were steady as I opened the app. I didn't scroll wildly. I didn't act frantic. I went straight to the time window. The report was filed at 10:14. So I pulled up 10:10 to 10:15. The camera feed loaded and my porch appeared on my screen. Bright morning light. The wind moving a plant. The street quiet. Then at 10:12, someone stepped into frame. Not a stranger. My mother. She moved fast, looking over her shoulder once, toward the street, toward the neighbors, like she wanted an audience even if they didn't know what they were seeing. She crouched by my steps, and she placed the small bag on the porch. Then she stood, brushed her hands together like she'd done nothing, and walked out of frame. 2 minutes later, the camera caught her again. Across the street this time, arms folded, staring at my door like she was waiting for the knock she'd ordered. The kitchen went quiet in a way that felt heavy and clean. "Ms." Halprin stared at my phone, then at her tablet, then back at my phone. Mr. Lacey stopped writing. Miss Halprin's voice dropped into something colder than sympathy. "That's significant," she said. "It's not just significant," I replied calmly. "It's intentional." Ms. Halprin swallowed once, then asked, "Can you send that clip to me?" "I can," I said. "But I want it noted that she staged evidence before filing." Mr. Lacey finally looked up fully. "Ma'am," he said, and his tone had shifted. "This changes the context of the report. I didn't look out the window. I didn't give my mother the satisfaction of seeing me turn toward her. I kept my eyes on Ms. Halprin and asked the next question that mattered. What happens now, I said, when the reporter is caught planting evidence on camera? Ms. Halprin stared at the video again, and then said quietly, "Now we have to treat this as a malicious report, and we have to contact our supervisor immediately." Ms. Halprin didn't step away to make a quick call. She stayed at my kitchen table, put her tablet on the counter, and called her supervisor on speaker like she wanted the words recorded in the air. "Supervisor Lang," she said when the line connected. "I'm on a home visit for Naomi Weller. Reporter is the child's maternal grandmother. We have doorbell footage showing the reporter placing an item on the porch 2 minutes before filing the intake. There was a short pause on the other end, just long enough for me to picture someone's expression changing in an office somewhere. "Send me the clip," Supervisor Lang said, voice tight and controlled. "And do not leave the residence until you've documented the scene." Halprin looked at me. "Can you export the video?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and I did it without fumbling. I emailed the clip to the address she dictated, attached the time-stamped still frame, and included the exact filing time from the intake line. Mr. Lacey wrote like his pen was trying to outrun the truth. Supervisor Lang's voice came through again. "Ms. Weller," she said to me, "are you saying your mother filed this report maliciously?" "Yes," I replied. "And I'm saying she staged evidence on my porch before doing it." "And she's currently outside?" Lang asked. I didn't look out the window. "Across the street?" I said. "Watching." Ms. Halprin added, "Neighbors are observing. There's a crowd effect." Supervisor Lang exhaled slowly. "Okay," she said. "Here's what happens. You continue the safety check, which you've done. You document the staged evidence and the footage. Then you exit professionally. And Ms. Weller, if the reporter approaches or escalates, you call local law enforcement. Not because you're in trouble, because this is harassment at minimum and potentially a false report with evidence tampering." My mother liked to make me feel alone inside institutions. Hearing a supervisor say the words "false report" out loud felt like a door unlocking. Ms. Halprin ended the call and looked at me with something close to apology. "I'm going to have to take photos of the porch," she said. "And the item." "Of course," I said. "But you're also going to see the camera angle that proves she placed it." Ms. Halprin nodded once. Mr. Lacey moved toward the front door. When Mrs. Halprin opened it, the neighborhood seemed to inhale. My mother was still across the street, arms folded, chin lifted like a queen watching her verdict arrive. The moment she saw us step onto the porch, she started walking over, fast and purposeful, like she'd been waiting for her cue. "Finally!" she called out, loud enough for the curtains to hear. "I've been trying to protect that child." Miss Halprin held up a hand gently. "Ma'am," she said, "please stay back for a moment." My mother didn't slow down. She climbed my steps like she belonged there and aimed her performance straight at the workers. "Thank you for coming," she said, voice trembling on command. "I'm so scared for him. She's unstable. She leaves him alone." "There are men coming in and out." Ms. Halprin stayed calm. "Ma'am," she repeated, firmer. "We have video from 10:12 this morning showing you placing an item on this porch right before you filed the report. We need you to stop speaking and step back." My mother's face flickered. One clean flash of panic. Then the mask snapped back into place. "That's ridiculous," she said, laughing too quickly. "I came to pick up trash. This neighborhood is filthy." Mr. Lacey pointed at his clipboard. "Your report alleged substance use," he said, flat. "And the item you placed is part of that allegation?" My mother's eyes cut toward him with quiet rage. "You don't get to accuse me," she snapped. "I'm the grandmother." I watched her do it again, turn a title into authority. Ms. Halprin didn't argue feelings. She argued record. "Ma'am," she said, "your name is on the intake. Your filing time is documented. And you are on the doorbell camera placing an object that appears designed to support your claims." My mother's gaze swung to me like she wanted my face to give her a reaction she could use. I didn't give her one. I kept my voice level. "You were not invited here," I said. "Step off my property." The neighbor's attention sharpened. A car slowed as it passed. Someone's phone lifted behind a curtain, the glow faint. My mother smiled like she'd been waiting for me to speak. "Hear that?" she called out, turning slightly so the street could hear. Cold, no emotion. That's how she is with him, too. Ms. Halprin's tone cut in, calm and controlled. Ma'am, we are not taking your commentary, she said. We are documenting behavior. My mother's jaw tightened. Then document this, she hissed, and she stepped closer to Ms. Halprin. Too close. You're letting her manipulate you. She has everyone fooled. Mr. Lacey shifted his stance subtly, protective without being dramatic. I didn't move, but I felt that small, subtle fear again, because I knew my mother's pattern. When words stop working, she tries to create physical chaos. Ma'am, Ms. Halprin said, step back. My mother didn't. So I did the only thing that keeps a pattern from becoming a tragedy. I called the police. Not screaming, not begging, just facts. Hi, I said into the phone, voice even. I have CPS workers at my home. The reporter who filed a false child welfare report is on my property. Escalating. We have doorbell video showing her staging evidence. I need an officer to respond. My mother heard the word officer and her face changed again. New performance, new angle. She raised her hand slightly, like she was the one being threatened. She's calling the police on me, she said to the neighbors, voice cracking theatrically. Because I care about my grandson. Ms. Halprin looked at me and gave the smallest nod of approval, like I'd done the right procedural thing. While we waited, she took photos of the porch area, the item, the doorway, the street line. She also asked me quietly, do you have any prior restraining orders or police reports involving your mother? No prior orders, I said. But I have texts and voicemails where she threatens to make sure I never raise him without her. Keep them, she said. We may need them. My mother kept talking the entire time, getting louder as minutes passed, trying to bait me into yelling so she could point and say, see? I stayed quiet, because my silence was no longer empty, and it was filled with timestamps. When the patrol car finally turned onto my street, my mother's posture stiffened like she'd just realized the audience wasn't enough to protect her. The officer approached with calm steps, hand nowhere near his weapon, body camera centered on his chest. What's going on? He asked. Ms. Halprin spoke first. Officer, I'm CPS. We're completing a visit. The reporter is here, escalating, and we have video that may indicate staging, she said. We need to keep this controlled. My mother tried to jump in immediately. Officer, thank God, she said. She's unstable. The officer held up a hand. Ma'am, he said, neutral. I'm going to need you to step off the property while I speak with them. My mother blinked, offended. I'm family. That doesn't matter, the officer replied. Step back to the sidewalk. My mother's eyes flashed. She looked around for support and found only faces watching. She stepped back. Ms. Halprin turned to the officer and said, the intake report was filed at 10:14 a.m. by the grandmother. Our doorbell footage shows the grandmother placing an item on the porch at 10:12. The officer's gaze shifted to my doorbell camera, then to my mother, then back to me. Can you show me the clip? He asked. Yes, I said, and I held the phone steady as he watched. The officer didn't react big. He just nodded once at the timestamp and said, okay. Then he turned toward my mother, voice still even. Ma'am, he said, we need to talk about why you were on her porch placing an item 2 minutes before filing a report. My mother's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. I was picking up trash, she snapped. She's twisting this. She always twists things. The officer didn't argue. He asked, do you have permission to be on her porch? My mother hesitated for half a second too long. I'm his grandmother, she said. The officer nodded. That's not permission, he replied. You're being asked to leave. If you return, you can be trespassed. My mother's face went tight with humiliation, the kind she couldn't tolerate. She glared at me like she wanted to burn the evidence out of my hand. And that's when my phone rang again. Not my mother. My son's school. I answered, and the front office voice was urgent. Ms. Weller, she said, we need you to confirm something right now. A woman is here claiming there's an emergency and that she's authorized to pick up your son. She says she has paperwork. I felt the subtle fear sharpen into something colder. Because my mother hadn't just tried to mark me at home. She was already moving to take him somewhere else. For one heartbeat, I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't have words, because I didn't want to give my mother the kind of panic she could reuse. I looked at Ms. Halprin. I looked at the patrol officer. Then I looked back at my phone. "Do not release my son," I said into the call, voice steady. "Put him in the main office with a staff member. Lock the front doors. I'm coming now." The front office sounded tense. "She's saying she has paperwork," the woman said. "She keeps repeating child services like it's a magic phrase." "Ask her for ID," I replied. "Ask her to sign the visitor log. And tell her you're calling law enforcement." "She's refusing to leave," the woman whispered. "Then do not let her pass the counter," I said. "If she raises her voice, tell her the call is being documented." I ended the call and turned to the officer. "That's my son's school," I said. "My mother is there trying to pick him up." The officer's expression tightened. Not alarmed, just decisive. "You want me to respond with you?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "And I want the CPS workers to note this escalation." Ms. Halprin's face had gone rigid, the kind of rigid that says she'd seen this pattern before and hated it. "We will," she said. "This is interference." My mother, still on the sidewalk, heard the word school and moved. One quick step toward her car like she thought she could outrun the record. The officer's voice cut in. "Ma'am," he said. "I firmer now. Do not leave." My mother froze and turned, hand already halfway raised in protest. "You can't tell me where to go," she snapped. "I can if you're involved in an active harassment situation," he replied. "Stay put." Her eyes darted to me, sharp with hatred. "You're doing this," she hissed. "You're making a spectacle." "No," I said calmly. "You are." Ms. Halprin looked at me. "Go," she said. "We've documented the visit. We've sent the clip. We'll notify our supervisor and attach the escalation to the intake." I nodded once and moved with purpose, not speed. Speed looks like fear. Purpose looks like control. The officer walked with me to his car. As I got in, I glanced back one time. My mother stood there with her arms folded again, but the satisfaction was gone now. In its place was something tighter. Worry. Not worry about my son. Worry about the fact that she'd overplayed her hand. The drive to the school took 7 minutes. Every red light felt personal. The officer called ahead from his radio and requested a unit to meet us at the campus. When we pulled into the parking lot, I saw the front office windows immediately. Blinds half drawn, shadows moving inside. A small cluster of parents stood near the sidewalk looking confused. A teacher held the door half closed, watching the entrance like a guard. The officer got out first and walked in with calm steps that made people unconsciously move aside. I followed. Inside the office, the air smelled like copier toner and hand sanitizer. The front desk staff looked relieved the second they saw the uniform. And then I saw my mother. She was at the counter, leaning forward, a voice raised just enough to sound concerned without sounding unstable. A manila folder was open in front of her like evidence. Her lipstick was perfect. Her hair was perfect. She looked like she'd dressed for court. "I'm his grandmother," she was saying. "And CPS is involved. You have to release him to me." The secretary, hands trembling slightly, looked between my mother and me like she wasn't sure who would explode first. I didn't explode. I walked up beside the officer and said, calmly, "That is my child. You will not release him to her." My mother turned, eyes wide in fake shock. "There she is," she said loudly for the room. "See how cold she is? She doesn't even care that CPS showed up." The officer stepped closer to the counter. "Ma'am," he said, "step back." My mother's smile hardened. "Officer, thank God you're here," she said, flipping her script instantly. "She's unstable. She's leaving him alone. I filed a report because I'm scared for him." I watched the secretary flinch at the word unstable, like it had been used here before too, in different contexts. The officer didn't take my mother's story. He took the folder. "What paperwork are you presenting?" he asked. My mother slid a page forward with 2 fingers like she was doing him a favor. It was a printed intake form header with a case number and a worker assignment line, formatted to look official. She'd brought a CPS-looking paper into a school office to force a release. I didn't look at her. I looked at the secretary. "Where is my son right now?" I asked. "In the counselor's office," she whispered. "He's safe." "Good," I said. The school principal stepped out from a side door. Tall, tight expression, yet tie slightly crooked like he'd been pulled out mid-problem. "I'm Principal Garner," he said. "Ma'am, we do not release children based on someone's claims. We release based on our authorized pickup list." My mother smiled like she'd been expecting that line. "Perfect," she said brightly. "Check the list. I'm on it." The principal looked at the secretary. The secretary swallowed and shook her head slightly, then pulled up a computer screen behind the counter. I'm not sure," she said, voice thin. "There was a change request this morning." My stomach went cold. "What change request?" The secretary clicked into the student information system. "An emergency contact update," she said quietly. "It came in flagged as urgent." The officer leaned in. "Oh, who submitted it?" he asked, and the secretary looked like she didn't want to answer in front of my mother. Then she glanced at the officer's badge and chose the truth. "It was submitted from an online parent portal login," she said. "Under Naomi Weller." My mother's face didn't change, but her eyes did, just a flicker. Because she hadn't expected them to say my name, I kept my voice flat. "I did not submit anything today," I said. My mother cut in immediately. "She's lying," she snapped. "She's embarrassed. She's always embarrassed." The principal held up a hand. "Ma'am," he said, "stop. We're verifying." I turned to the secretary. "Show me the timestamp," I said, "and show me what was changed." The secretary clicked into the audit details. The screen reflected faintly in the glass of a framed Attendance Matters poster. The officer watched the screen and then looked at me. "What time?" he asked the secretary. She read it out loud. 10:21 a.m., 10:21. Right after my mother filed the report. Right after she placed the bag on my porch. Right after she'd set the stage. The secretary scrolled. "The change request adds Diane Weller as an authorized pickup," she said, voice shaking. "It lists her as temporary guardian." My mother lifted her chin. "There," she said. "See? It's documented. Now release him." My pulse stayed steady, but my palms went cold. Because now the fight wasn't only about what she said, it was about what she had managed to get into a system. The principal's jaw tightened. "We're not releasing him," he said. "Not with a conflict like this." My mother's voice rose. "You have to—" The officer cut in. "No, they don't," he said. "And you need to step away from the counter." My mother turned her anger on him. "This is discrimination," she hissed. "She's weaponizing the police against family." The officer's expression didn't change. "You are trying to take a child from a school using disputed paperwork," he said. "Step back." My mother's lips trembled, but she complied. One slow step, then another, eyes burning into me like she could still force me to react. The principal looked at the secretary. "Pull the login history," he said. "Now. IP address. Device. Anything." The secretary's fingers moved fast. She clicked into a log window and froze. Her face went pale. "What is it?" the principal asked. She swallowed. "The login didn't come from her usual device," she said. "It came from a new device, and it used a password reset." My throat tightened. "A reset request?" I asked. The secretary nodded. Yes, it says the reset was processed through email. I felt my chest go cold and clear. Which email? I asked. The secretary hesitated, then looked at the officer like she needed permission to say it. The officer nodded once. Say it, he said. The secretary read the line on the screen, voice small. The password reset confirmation was sent to an email address that is not on file for Ms. Weller, she said. It was sent to Diane.Weller@. My mother's head snapped toward the screen. The principal went still, and the officer's tone shifted into something sharper than procedure. Ma'am, he said to my mother, did you intercept your daughter's school portal access? My mother opened her mouth, but nothing came out clean. Her eyes darted, searching for a new story. The principal turned the monitor slightly and said, Officer, there's more. The reset request includes a source note that doesn't come from our system. He clicked once and a small detail pane appeared. Technical, boring, devastating. The principal read it, then looked up at me with a tight expression. This reset wasn't initiated through our normal portal, he said quietly. It was initiated through a back-end admin link that only district staff can access. For a moment, the office felt like it had lost oxygen. A back-end admin link? Not something a normal parent could reach, not something you stumble into, not something you guess. The principal's eyes stayed on the screen. This is district level, he said, voice tight. Someone with internal access initiated it. My mother recovered first, she always did. And her face brightened into outrage like it was a protective coating. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You're all letting her spin fantasies. She's unstable. Stop, the officer said, louder now, not angry, just final. My son's counselor stepped into the office doorway at that moment. My son behind her, small shoulders tense, eyes darting between adults. Mom? He asked, uncertain. My chest tightened, and I forced my voice to stay steady. Hey, I said gently. You're okay. Stay with Ms. Darnell for a minute, all right? He nodded, clutching his hoodie. The counselor guided him back out, door closing softly. The principal turned to the secretary. Pull the district reset audit trail, he said. If this was back-end, there's a ticket, or an admin log. The secretary's fingers moved fast. She clicked into a deeper menu, the kind of menu schools don't show parents. Another screen opened with a list of entries. Time, action, staff account, and a short note. She froze again. The officer leaned in. Write it, he said. The secretary swallowed hard. Reset initiated at 10:21, she said. Staff account, M. Holt, District Family Services. Family Services? My stomach went cold in a way that felt familiar now, like every institution my mother touched got pulled into her orbit. The principal's eyes narrowed. Marianne Holt? He murmured, more to himself. The officer looked up. Do you know that name? He asked. The principal nodded slowly. District Family Services Coordinator, he said. She handles custody disputes, safety plans, high conflict cases. High conflict, my mother's favorite category, and the one where she could pretend she was a hero and everyone else was a risk. The officer's gaze shifted to my mother. So, he said evenly, a district staff account initiated a reset that allowed your name to be added as authorized pickup. My mother lifted her chin like she'd been waiting for this moment. Finally, she said, someone competent understands what I've been saying. I didn't look at her. I looked at the principal. Can you call Marianne Holt? I said calmly, and ask why she accessed my child's records? The principal hesitated for half a second, the normal instinct to protect colleagues. Then he saw the officer's presence and the child factor, and that instinct died. He picked up his phone and dialed. We waited in tight silence as the line rang. My mother smiled faintly like she thought this phone call would crown her. Marianne answered on speaker. Marianne Holt, she said. Principal Garner didn't waste time. Marianne, this is Garner at Maplewood Elementary, he said. We have Naomi Weller in the office with an officer. There was a back-end password reset on her portal at 10:21 this morning from your staff account. It added Diane Weller as authorized pickup. Explain. There was a pause. Not confusion. Calculation. Then Marianne said, I received an urgent call from a concerned grandparent regarding immediate child safety. I facilitated a temporary update pending verification. The officer's tone stayed flat. Ma'am, he said, did you verify with a legal parent before initiating access changes? Another pause. No, Marianne admitted, voice stiff. It was urgent. The principal's jaw tightened. We don't bypass parental verification, he said. Not for a grandparent. Marianne's voice cooled. I acted in the child's best interest. I kept my voice quiet but steady. You acted based on my mother's narrative, I said. And she filed a CPS report this morning that included staged evidence. Marianne didn't respond to me directly. She responded like a bureaucrat protecting a decision. If CPS is involved, that reinforces the concern, she said. Ms. Halprin's voice cut in from beside me. She'd arrived at the school with us and had been standing back until now. This is CPS worker Halprin, she said, controlled and clear. The reporter is the grandmother. We have doorbell footage showing the grandmother placing an item on the porch 2 minutes before filing. We have documented evidence staging. The silence on the line turned heavy. Marianne's voice came back tighter. I was not aware of that? The officer asked one simple question. Did the grandmother ask you to add her as pickup today? Marianne hesitated. Then she said quietly, Yes. My mother's smile flickered. The officer's tone sharpened a fraction. Did she provide you any legal documentation granting her custody or guardianship? No, Marianne said. The principal's voice cut in, clipped now. Then you made an unauthorized access change to a student record without verification. Marianne started to speak. Policy words, justification words, but the principal didn't let her. I'm escalating this to district compliance, he said. Immediately. The officer turned to my mother. Ma'am, he said, you used a false report and attempted system access to try to take your grandson from school. Yeah, you are leaving now. My mother's eyes widened with outrage. He belongs with family, she snapped. He belongs with his legal parent, the officer replied. And you're done here. The principal looked at the secretary. Remove Diane Weller from authorized pickup, he said. Lock the portal, flag the account, require in-person verification for any future changes. The secretary nodded, fingers flying. The screen changed. A confirmation pop-up appeared. She clicked confirm. My mother's face twisted, realizing she was watching her leverage evaporate in real time. Then the officer said, And I need your identification, ma'am. My mother stiffened. Why? Because there may be charges related to false reporting and attempted interference, he said. And because CPS has documented staging. Ms. Halprin nodded once. Yet we're submitting a malicious reporting referral, she said, and the staged evidence clip is already archived. My mother's mouth opened, words spilling out. Discrimination, retaliation, grandmother's rights. Every phrase she'd collected to weaponize empathy. None of it landed because the room had moved from story to record. The officer guided my mother toward the door. Not rough, not dramatic, just controlled. As she passed me, she hissed, low, venomous. You'll regret this. I kept my voice level. No, I said. You will. Outside, a second patrol unit arrived. The officer spoke quietly with my mother on the sidewalk, taking her information, noting the trespass warning, documenting the incident. Not an arrest on the spot, but a file opened with specifics. Names, times, locations, video. And for someone like my mother, And that was the beginning of a consequence she couldn't charm away. Ms. Halprin pulled me aside near the office door. "Your case will be closed as unfounded," she said, "and we will flag the reporter. If she files again, it will be treated differently." "Thank you," I said. The principal handed me a printed letter. "This confirms your authorized pickup list was corrected," he said, "and that a district-level access incident is under review." I glanced at the paper and felt my shoulders loosen for the first time all day. When I finally walked my son to the car, he held my hand tighter than usual. "Am I in trouble?" he asked quietly. "No," I said, and kept my voice gentle. "You're safe. Adults sometimes lie. But we have cameras, and we have rules." He nodded, and after a moment he asked, "Grandma lied?" I didn't poison him with my anger. I gave him truth in a shape he could carry. "Grandma made a bad choice," I said. And the grown-ups wrote it down. 2 weeks later, CPS closed the case as unfounded and documented the doorbell footage as evidence of a staged allegation. My mother was formally flagged for malicious reporting, and the agency warned her that future false reports could trigger penalties. The school district opened an internal investigation into Marianne Holt's misuse of admin access. She was placed on administrative leave and later terminated for policy violations tied to unauthorized student record changes. The police report was filed with a video attached, and my mother was issued a no trespass notice for both my home and my son's campus. When she tried to drop off gifts anyway, she earned herself a citation that made the warning real. My neighbors stopped peeking through curtains when they saw the truth was boring and documented, because the only thing more powerful than a lie is a timestamp. In the comments, tell me this. If someone tried to weaponize CPS against you, would you confront them right away? Or would you do what I did and let the camera, the logs, and the paperwork speak first? If you want more stories like this, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.